Is it just me, or does this look like a cult to you? No, maybe it's just me. You know what? Maybe it's the music that's the problem. If we just switch up the soundtrack, if we put the same clip to different music, it won't look like a cult at all.
Like a can of mace. Chase bent over.
Bite me and taste me.
Yo, I love y'all.
I'm saying.
Shout out to Cassie King, who was the good-looking red-haired girl there singing in the crowd. There are rumors that her relationship with Wayne Hsiung might be more than merely professional. All these people are open about the fact that they live in the same apartment and sometimes sleep in the same bed, but the notion is going around that the relationship between Cassie King and Wayne Hsiung, the relationship at the top of the leadership of Direct Action Everywhere, might have more to do with who Wayne is sleeping with than any kind of democracy or any kind of responsible management of a non-profit foundation through its board of directors or corporate governance or some concept like that. That's just a rumor that's out there. People were shocked when I said on my YouTube channel, I didn't even know I was the first one to say it. People were shocked when I referred to Wayne and Priya as sleeping together. I had people, I think it was only 2 people. There was one I really remember, people who were at the top level of DXE and who knew Wayne face-to-face in person. I had people writing to me saying, who told you that Wayne was sleeping with Priya? And who told you it was okay to talk about that on YouTube? So they were confirming it. I was like, what? Isn't it obvious? Doesn't everyone know that? And they wrote back, they're like, no, that's supposed to be secret. Nobody's supposed to know that the top of the organization is Wayne and the woman he's sleeping with. And you might not have noticed there's been this subtle change throughout the whole organization as Priya's role has been minimized and she's been pushed to the side and she's increasingly doing her own thing on her own Instagram and is no longer the face of the leadership of Direct Action Everywhere. And Cassie King is taking over as leader of DXE. Hey, good for her. Good for her. And you know what? As far as I know, these are all consenting adults. I do not know if Wayne is currently sleeping with Cassie King or not. I got nothing but love for you. You know what my wish is? You know what my dream is? My dream is that Cassie King gets pregnant with Wayne Hsiung's child. They stop all of this bullshit and they go and raise a baby together. And they stop polluting vegan activism with their insane horseshit. That's my fantasy. And you know what? You know what'll take as second best? Is that Wayne Hsiung finally goes to prison for 60 years, something he's been boasting about doing for so long. None of us would be in this situation if the authorities in California would just enforce the law. This guy breaks the law again and again and again, and he collects huge amounts of money in donations, going out and eliciting people's sympathy because he's going to go to prison for decades for his convictions. Just put him in prison already. He knows what the law is. He knows that he's violating it. He knows why he's violating it. He has a very clear financial interest where he is benefiting in terms of money, fame, power, respect, sex. Yeah, I said it. Sex also. It's part of his sex life as rock star, law-breaking, trespassing activist Wayne Hsiung. It's part of the package deal.
He flatters young people and uses his leadership role in DXE to impress them and gain their trust.
Aggressive.
Yeah, you want to get to the front lines.
I have to, whatever it takes. Yeah.
Right, good. Well, what I'd suggest you do is send an email to dxe@directactionever.com. Say you're interested in starting something with DXE, and you'll get a mentoring call.
And all of this is premised on the idea that he's willing to go to prison, and he's begging to go to prison, and he keeps breaking the law. He keeps going to court, and the government in California just won't enforce the law against this guy. End it. Put Wayne out of his misery. Put the whole organization out of his misery. Put all of us out of our misery. And you know what? Maybe Cassie King, whether or not she's pregnant with Wayne's love child, maybe she can take over the leadership of that organization and bring it in a more positive direction. I have seen Cassie make some intelligent videos here on YouTube, and some of them were on Instagram. I have seen her do some intelligent things and some intelligent work, and that's more than I can say for Wayne. Wayne, in my books, is a grade A moron. I've read his writing. I've heard his interviews. I haven't just seen him on YouTube videos. Wayne is a complete deadweight drag on the vegan movement. I hope he eliminates himself, or I hope he goes to prison, or I hope he gets someone pregnant and settles down and starts a family already. Man, the purpose of this video, in case you didn't guess, is basically to promote Leafy Greens, who started her series. Episode 1, I think, is going to be less salacious and talked about than episode 2. Leafy Greens is a YouTuber who was involved with Direct Action Everywhere in her teenage years. And she was involved with Wayne personally in her teenage years. And in part 2, she's going to talk more about that personal relationship. But part 1 is nevertheless an expose and a reflection on Direct Action Everywhere and its methods, and why Wayne is a terrible person or terrible leader in the vegan movement. Okay, here's my reflection on this. I feel sorry for these people, and it's not uniquely linked to veganism why I feel sorry for them.
Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of the work that we do is not going out all the way in.
Like chaining yourselves to things and
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yes.
we've done civil disobedience before outside of slaughterhouses and factory farms, and we're going to do more of it.
And you can get arrested for that, right? I mean, I'm down for it.
I feel sorry for these people because a lot of them are reasonably highly educated, reasonably intelligent, physically fit people. Like, they're not disabled, they're not physically or mentally disabled. They could do anything with their lives. They could pursue political change and cultural change in so many ways. They could make the world a better place in so many different ways, and they're trapped in a false ideology premised on this assumption that the way to change the world is to stand next to the highway holding a piece of paper with a slogan written on it, chanting and hollering as traffic goes by, as people drive their cars to pick up their laundry, pick up their dry cleaning, go food shopping. Like, huh? You know, for half a second, they see you holding this sign saying meat is murder. To run out on a baseball field and interrupt the game for half a second. So a bunch of people who don't care are like, huh? For half a second, they get exposed to the concept that meat is murder, or free range is a myth, or whatever it is they've written on the sign for that day. This stupid, toxic, counterproductive notion of what politics itself is.
We do more of it.
And you can get arrested for that, right? I mean, I'm down for it.
You can get arrested, and we suggest you get training in civil disobedience and nonviolent resistance before you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Take me to jail. I don't care. Seriously, that's
I can tell.
I'm serious. Take me.
You got the passion.
There's a young woman, I guess, sorry, she's not. She's now a middle-aged woman. No offense, but she is. There is a woman who was in a controversy on YouTube because she had accusations of sexual misconduct against a prominent left-wing political figure. I'm keeping this all anonymous intentionally. So about 2 years ago, there was this controversy. And, you know, I noticed that woman, she is now running, she's standing for election in a small town in Michigan. So like, wow, okay, so that's someone who kind of turned it around. Like, she had a little bit of notoriety, you know, a little bit of fame or something because of this weird situation with sexual allegations and counter allegations. And the left-wing guy she had the allegations against, he was fired from his job as a result of this controversy, as a result of what he did, what the allegations were about. Okay, and I thought, well, that's kind of a positive thing. Like, at some point in the last 2 years, she got into mainstream party politics, and she's now standing for election. Whatever. So I took her name and put it into YouTube. And, you know, with YouTube, you can change the amount of time you're searching for. You can search for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year. And, like, the only YouTube video I found of this woman from the last year, despite the fact that she's now she's standing for election, she's participating in politics, I found one video of her not related to the sex scandal. I found one video of her leading a protest standing there on the pavement, holding pieces of paper as traffic goes by, chanting and hollering. And this is their attempt to end the war in Iraq, right? It's I forget what her university degree is, but I think she has a degree in something like politics, political science. She has some university education in this. It's and you think this is how you can influence foreign policy and war and, the Congressional Budget Office or, Congress or the Senate, or however you think of politics. This is how you think you can and should change the world, is standing on the sidewalk in the cold, chanting at people who have absolutely no interest in even hearing what you're chanting. This is how you want to pursue political change, social change, cultural change. With all your education and background, and all the opportunities you have in life, and even this limited opportunity we're enjoying right now on YouTube to reach out to one another and talk about politics and get organized. This paradigm, you're trapped in it. The paradigm of protest, of outrage, of outpouring of emotions, and then in Wayne's case, in the case of Wayne and DXC, the next step of going to prison, of breaking the law and going to jail. You think that's the mark of authenticity, of taking it to the next level. You think that's the most effective, the most heroic form of activism. And they're dead wrong on every level. And years of their lives are going by. They're losing decades doing completely counterproductive, self-defeating nonsense. The protest itself is already counterproductive, self-defeating nonsense. The going to prison is counterproductive, self-defeating nonsense. And the singing and the chanting and the holding signboards and all the rest of it. And there is this thing called democracy. There's this real world of the pursuit of political change. And there's this world of the arts and filmmaking and broadcasting. And you could do interpretive dance and have more of an impact. You could use dance and music to try to change the world. I care about the politics of China. I care about communism and democracy. And when we talk about politics, there's past, there's present, there's future. What do you want to do about it? What do you want to do about the politics of China? Do we ever think, are we ever burdened by this, delusion? Would I ever turn to my girlfriend and say well, wow, if you really care about democracy in China, what we should do is get some pieces of paper and write slogans on them, and then go stand by the side of the road and chant that we want democracy and elections in China. That'll do it. Oh no, wait, let's take the pieces of paper and the slogans of the chanting and go inside a grocery store and interrupt people buying their groceries. It's fundamentally stupid. It's a fundamentally flawed and broken and pointless and counterproductive mode of activism. And the only insight Wayne Hsiung has brought to this is, hey, you can make a lot of money if you keep ratcheting up the drama, if you keep ratcheting up the consequences, if you increase the sense of danger and you tell people you're going to prison for 60 years or they can go to prison for 60 years, if you ratchet up the martyrdom element, then people will really go for it. And there's apparently an unseen mass of 100,000 elderly people. I guess they're people old enough to remember the bad old days of the communist revolutions of the world, who are going to open up their wallets and their checkbooks and write you a check and send you money, and they're going to tell you over the internet, oh, good for you, fight the fight. I wish I could be there with you, but I'm too old and rich, so I'm just going to pay you to upload your bullshit drama-mongering shenanigans so that you will record yourself covering yourself in manure, covering yourself in blood, running into a fucking fast food restaurant, so that you'll do these stunts, film your stunts, upload them to YouTube, and then elderly rich people can watch them as some kind of political trauma porn and send you checks in the mail. That is the mode of activism that Wayne Hsiung, who started off with all these sanctimonious lectures about Mohandas Gandhi in India and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and how he, Wayne Hsiung, had studied. He had taken his elite level of education, he'd been to law school, he'd done the social science research to figure out what was the most effective form of vegan activism. And what did he do? He reproduced all the self-destructive stupidity of PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, and the ALF, the Animal Liberation Front, and combined them into one big mess to get himself thrown in prison.
to get paid.